So we're gonna share some stories, some scary stories, with hopefully some beautiful lessons in them. But first, we're gonna meditate for a little bit, as is what we do in this meditation group. And those of you that have been coming know we've been exploring the theme of parts. And so tonight we're gonna explore a little bit what it's like to meet some of those hungry or frightened or even haunted parts within us. I don't know if any of those will come up in this 15-minute meditation right now, but maybe they will. And the idea, as always, is to meet whatever comes up in experience with compassion, with patience, with kindness. This has kind of been the overarching theme of this month of exploration. So even these scary, fearful parts, meeting them with love and respect and appreciation. So yeah, just finding any way to sit that feels good for you. Way to sit that's upright but also relaxed. And then if you'd like to, you can close your eyes, but you can also just rest your gaze on the floor in front of you. And we'll begin the meditation with the sound of the bell. So let's start by taking a few longer, slower, deeper breaths just to help the body and the mind arrive, slow down. And then as you feel ready, just letting go of any control over the breath. Kind of trusting in the wisdom of the body and the breath to self-regulate. Noticing what it feels like to let go of any control. And trust in the wisdom of the body. And we can also set an intention to allow the thinking mind, the planning mind, the anxious mind, just to set it down for the duration of this meditation. Not pushing it away, but just kind of allowing the thoughts to fall to the background and allowing the body and the breath to be in the foreground of your attention. Tuning into that rhythm of the breath in a way that feels comfortable, supportive. And inviting in a sense of ease. You've come here, chosen to spend this amount of time to be quiet. So what would it feel like to just radically take any pressure off of yourself or the meditation or any expectations, just allowing all of that to rest. And tuning into this body and this breath as it is here in this moment. Not as we want it to be or prefer it, but meeting experience with mindfulness. This inherently non-judgmental attitude of the mind. And as we settle in, softening, noticing where there's any points of tension, starting in the forehead or the face, the eyes, the muscles of the brain, the thinking mind. Noticing what's happening in the jaw or the mouth. releasing with whatever's not needed. Scanning downwards, back through the shoulders, noticing the shoulder blades, seeing if it's possible to just let the shoulder blades come together a little bit. And releasing the arms and the hands. Which can allow the chest and the stomach and the belly to open up. Scanning down into the legs. Feeling the contact with the cushion. Feeling into the weight of the legs. The gentle force of gravity. And spending a minute really connecting to this lower half of the body. Grounding, softening. And bringing the awareness to the whole body. From the top of the head all the way to the bottom of the feet. And from this whole body awareness, noticing the quality of awareness itself, of mindfulness. The simple presence of mind that's open, spacious, receptive. And just allowing whatever arises in your experience to be met, to be seen, and then also allow it to pass. So whether that's a thought or a feeling or a ghost, maybe a ghost of the past that just keeps returning and returning. Meeting experience with the full heart and non-attachment. We'll just spend a few more minutes together in silence, practicing with your own heart, your own mind, and your own ghosts. maybe to end this meditation, just offering yourself the simple well-wishing. I see you. I love you. And I'm here for you. With whatever's here in this experience today. So thank you all for your practice and shared presence. Always feels good to be in community on a Tuesday evening. And throughout this series, we've been exploring the idea of parts, all these various parts like managers, parts of us that have been exiled, wounded parts, and how that overlaps with some Buddhist teachings, how awareness can be a means of meeting thoughts, emotions, memories, sensations with an attitude of kindness and non-judgmentalness. And so tonight we're going to try to pull this all together through some ancient scary Buddhist stories filled with ghosts, demons, bandits, that all in the end don't end with destruction or trying to kill the ghosts, but with understanding, as all these Buddhist stories tend to do. And so each of these stories is about what happens when awareness meets what it fears, and how in this meeting freedom can become possible. It's okay. So we're going to start with the story of some monks in a forest. And this is from the suttas. Long ago, there's a group of monks that went to meditate deep in a forest during the rains retreat. So this was something every year the monks would gather for months on end to sit deep in the forest. But this forest was haunted. At least so it seemed. And so as these monks went into the woods, they heard voices whispering through the trees. They felt eyes watching them in the dark. The air grew cold, shapes flickered at the edge of their sight. Demons, ghosts, haunting, floating in the background. And fear began to spread through the camp like wildfire. And so, like the monks always do, they flee back to the Buddha and begged him, "Lord, we cannot stay here. The forest is haunted." And the Buddha smiled in his all-knowing way and said, "Yes, it is haunted, but not in the way that you think." And so he armed these monks with new instructions and a secret tool to bring back into the forest. So they returned to the forest again. And again they heard the whispers, the cold crept in, the ghosts and the demons returned. But this time the monks had a secret tool from the Buddha, and they sat peacefully, they breathed, and they repeated these simple phrases. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. And gradually the forest fell silent. The shadows became still, and the spirits became touched by their compassion. And it's said that in this moment, these demons and these ghosts of the forest fell in love with the monks and became their protectors. So this is the secret power of loving kindness or compassion. Those of you who were here a few weeks ago, Olivia shared about meeting parts of ourselves with compassion, particularly those parts that may be filled with fear or loneliness or anxiety. And that this is an important step in the part of unblending. Instead of identifying with some of these parts that are afraid, or meeting them with aversion, meeting them with compassion and love. All right, this next one hits pretty hard, y'all. This is the story of Angulimāla. You may have heard the name before, a legend. So long ago in the kingdom of Kosala, which is one of the regions in ancient India where the Buddha taught, there was a young man named Ahimsaka. Some of you might recognize that word, which means harmless. And so he was a bright, kind, he was deeply connected and devoted to a teacher. But the teacher that he dedicated himself to was consumed by jealousy of his intelligence. And so he deceived this young student. And the message he gave him was, if you truly want to master wisdom, the teacher said, you must bring me 1,000 human fingers as an offering. And so Ahimsaka, being this dedicated student, obeyed. He's like, all right, I guess this is what I got to do for spiritual awakening. 1,000 human fingers. Here we go. And so in this moment, he became Aṅgulimāla. Which name means garland of fingers. And so he hunted travelers in the forest, cutting off a finger of each victim and wearing them like a gangster around his neck. And so he developed, as you can see, this disgusting necklace of human fingers, quite fearsome. And so he got to the point where he killed 999 people. He was almost there to becoming what he thought a spiritual master. And so the king, hearing of what was happening, sent soldiers out to kill him. And then Angulimāla's mother heard what was happening and was like, my son, he's going to die. So she went off into the forest to find him before he did. Sorry, this is a little out of order. Oh yeah, this is just a necklace with all the fingers on it. Thought that was pretty good. Absolutely, yeah. I was like, this is like some artist's rendition of the fingers. Anyways, so his mother enters the forest to save him. And so on that same morning, of course, the omniscient Buddha, through his deep knowing, saw what was about to happen. Angulimāla, he's out there trying to get his 1,000th kill, and his mom is coming out to try to save him. He was going to murder his own mother. And if he murdered his own mother, the Buddha's like, there's no coming back from that one. Like, you can't be saved. So he knew Angulimāla's heart still held a seed of goodness. And so he walked calmly toward the forest path. And when Angulimāla saw the Buddha, he shouted, skipped one. He shouted, stop, monk. And he tried running after the Buddha. But the Buddha is somehow walking completely calmly, and Angulimāla can't get any closer to him. And so he runs faster and faster, and the Buddha is just walking calm as fuck. Can't get any ground on him. Complete serenity. And then finally, breathless and enraged, Angulimāla screams at the Buddha, stop! And the Buddha turns like a true gangster and says, I have stopped, Angulimāla. It is you who has not stopped. And the words struck Angulimāla like lightning, and he saw for the first time that the running, the killing, the fear, it had never ended, and that the violence wasn't around him, it was inside of him. And so he dropped his sword, he fell to the Buddha's knees, and he said, "Teacher, I will follow you." And the Buddha accepted Angulimāla as a monk. And years later, Aṅgulimāla reached complete awakening, became a fully liberated human being. The murderer became a sage. And the same villagers who had once feared him came to offer him alms and to seek peace and teachings from this legendary one-time killer. So that's Aṅgulimāla. So, yeah, a pretty dark one. But the idea being that Aṅgulimāla, the heart or the mind, was not innately evil, but he was struggling through confusion, pain, and obviously a lot of deception from his teacher who led him horribly astray. And he really had, for those of you who've been coming, he had this really strong protector part, one that turns violent in an attempt to prevent deeper pain. Does anyone know of any Aṅgulimālas in this society or maybe in their personal life? People who use anger or violence as a means of protecting personal pain. Such a classic, tragic human story. And so the Buddha didn't meet him with fear or with force, but with this unwavering calm and presence. The stillness of liberation, or in the IFS language we've been using, self-energy. And that's the part of the mind that can't be provoked, is never damaged, and only understands. Okay, one more. And this is, of course, a classic. So the Buddha, those of you who know, was strongly motivated towards liberation, and was silent, seated beneath the Bodhi tree. Not quite yet the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, sat unmoving and vowed not to rise, not to get up until he saw the end of suffering. And then there began a trembling in the earth. The wind howled and the sky filled with dark shapes. It was Māra, the Lord of Delusion, arriving. And so Māra brought armies, came with fear, desire, doubt, and arrows flew through the air. Storms, rain, rocks, fire, darkness, weapons, all aimed at destroying the Buddha in his moment of attempting to awaken. But as these arrows neared the Buddha, they turned to lotus petals and fell harmlessly to the ground. And so the Māra was like, "Damn you, what do I need to do to stop you?" And so, the story goes, his 3 daughters came next. The daughters' names are craving, discontent or aversion, and passion or attachment. And they came to the Buddha whispering temptations in his ear. But the Buddha, seeing them as illusions of the mind, his heart remained unshaken and as still as a lake untouched by the wind. And then so finally, Māra thundered, "By what right do you sit here? Who will witness your awakening?" And in this moment, the Buddha placed his hand on the earth. The earth thundered and shook, and the earth replied, "I am his witness." And with that, Māra vanishes. The night grew still. Dawn broke over the forest, and the Buddha met his final awakening. So this character of Māra seems representative of, quite a few things. But in this moment, it seems to be the last levels of resistance in the Buddha's mind. the final layers of clinging, of fear, and the Buddha representing awareness itself that is spacious, not blended with these parts of the mind. And so the armies, the temptations, the doubts, these are the parts that rise up and prevent the mind from seeing clearly, the delusion. And so the awakening is seeing through the drama. And I love this image of the arrows coming at him and not destroying the arrows, but transmuting them and turning them into these flower petals which fall to the ground, and recognizing inherently the empty nature of everything that Māra was trying to attack with. Bless you. So the idea being that when these parts, even the strongest ones like fear, craving, and doubt, are met, they lose their power. So whether it's these monks meeting their fear in the middle of the woods with love, with loving kindness, or Angulimāla showing us that even after killing 999 people, it still wasn't too late to turn it around. Or Māra revealing for the Buddha that awakening is possible, seeing through some of these deeply held delusions of the mind. So the hungry ghosts, the bandits, the illusions of fear, the practice here being not to destroy the demons or destroy the ghosts or anything that we may be afraid of, but to meet them one by one until the heart becomes free and spacious and open. So this is this very calm Buddhist message on Halloween as a means and a practice to meet what may be fearful or terrifying even. So this is what I have to share.